Hello, everybody. Welcome to Sunday Night Live, where we equip you to thrive in change. The change that you planned that maybe didn't work out like you planned, the change that you didn't plan that came out of nowhere. You can thrive from each end of the spectrum, the change you wanted, the change you didn't. You have the capacity to thrive and be resilient in the midst of all of it. Doesn't mean you're going to be happy in the midst of all of it, but that's not what life's all about anyway. What I can guarantee you is this: if you will apply the principles that we talk about here, you will be more resilient in the face of all manner of change. That's a really powerful thing. So I want to welcome you. Tonight's Thrive principle that we are going to explore is trust the process. Trust the process. What we're going to explore tonight are two mindsets, two choices that you can make that will set you up to live an abundant life, to receive abundance, and to also be able to share abundance. Abundance is a glorious thing. Abundance means we aren't scrambling, we're not scrounging. We know in our heart of hearts that we have enough. Abundance comes with these two mindsets, and these starting points, if you will set you up for processes that will yield abundance over and over and over again. So that's going to be great. Hello, Mary. I'm glad you're here. Welcome. As people are jumping on, just so delighted. Here in Michigan, we're having a perfect summer day. It was a cloudless sky. It was just a little bit hot, so we all knew it was summer. It's just been really amazing, and it's fed my soul. That sunshine is pretty powerful. And wherever you are at in the world, I hope that you are getting some sunshine in your life, whether it's because of the sun and you're getting outdoors, or it's because you're surrounding yourself with people that are bright lights in your life. You need sunshine. So I hope you're getting it. And let's see, I would not go any further without telling you that you can enjoy the best coffee in the world, bar none. At least it's the best coffee I've ever tasted. It comes from Thumb Roast Coffee, and you can get it from thumbroastcoffee.com. At Thumb Roast, they source their beans responsibly. They roast them locally. They don't add anything artificial or extra. It's clean ingredients, and you can trust what you're drinking. I promise you will not be disappointed. It's fantastic. And as an added perk, I've never used that, I don't think, in this little blurb here. So good for me. That was a cute little pun. An added perk of being a Sunday Night Live viewer or a Thrive and Change listener is that you get to enjoy Thumb Roast Coffee from thumbroastcoffee.com for 15% off. And all you have to do is use the coupon code THRIVE, THRIVE. You will love it, I promise. And the fact that the owner of Thumb Roast Coffee, Missy, cares enough about growth and development that she'll sponsor a broadcast like this is pretty amazing. And it's consistent with who she is. I can vouch for that. So thank you, Missy and Thumb Roast Coffee, for being so generous to our viewers and our listeners. Hi, Carol. It's good to see you. And she's vouching for the coffee, you guys, and she's drinking it now. I'm envious. I can only drink coffee in the morning, and you guys are laughing at my funny jokes. So that's kind of fun, too. All right, let's get started talking about those two mindsets that are going to set you up for abundant life. So, many years ago, when I drove a forklift and lifted heavy things, I had the opportunity to be, for lack of a better term, a secretary to one of the executives in the organization. I had this chance to go and take off those steel toed boots and put on some high heel shoes and work in the office. And the head secretary was in charge of training me. the head secretary was in charge of training me, with the idea being that her boss, the executive, wanted to train a few people who could potentially take her place because she was getting ready to retire. What a great plan. And good for him as an executive to be thinking about succession planning for his key staff. So that's awesome. Excuse me. And so there were a couple of us that had been asked to come up and get this training to be secretaries. And it turned out pretty quickly, I was able to see that the head secretary didn't like me so much. She didn't like me at all. And so she refused to train me. She gave me very menial tasks that didn't allow me to develop any real skills in how to be a great secretary to the executive. And she favored the other person. And that was no fault of the other persons. They were just there trying to do the best job they could. But it was an intentional choice on behalf of the woman in charge to try and hold me down and try to lift up the other person. And so time's rolling on, and I'm starting to see, you have to excuse me, I have a, a tickle. I started to see very clearly that I was not going to be equipped to be able to qualify to get that better job at the rate we were going. I was not going to be trained enough. I was not going to have enough experience because that person wasn't allowing me to get what I needed. So I'm going to pause here and I want to ask you, have you ever been in that kind of a spot? Because most of us have a position where it's out of our hands. If we get what we need, somebody else is sort of in charge of our fate. And as I looked at this woman and how she was treating me, the opportunities she was refusing to give me, the training that she was not providing, I found myself getting more and more frustrated. I was so frustrated with her because that was my path off of the forklift, guys. I didn't want to spend the rest of my life driving a forklift. And that path right there, that secretary position was my ticket to a job that suited me better. And she was holding me back. And I was frustrated. I know you've been there. Somebody not giving you what you think you need in order to grow, in order to achieve your dream. Something interesting, though, started to happen. I kept reporting into work. I faithfully did the jobs that she gave me to do, the odd jobs, the shredding papers and going through endless piles of check registers and comparing them to the bank statements, stuff she hadn't done in about 4 years, so maybe longer, just menial tasks. But something interesting happened. There was a request from another department that also had an executive. They needed somebody to come and take minutes for a meeting. And the head secretary, who was in charge of training me, saw this as her opportunity to get rid of me. She unloaded me on that department. She was not quiet about how much she hated that department. She had shared with many of us over many cigarette breaks that she took out in the parking lot. She had shared over and over how much she despised that other department. And when somebody called to say, do you have someone that you could send over to take minutes for this meeting? I was the person that jumped to mind. So off she sends me. Here's where the story gets interesting. This person who had been holding me back, who had been not training me, who had been intentionally keeping me down so that somebody else could get the opportunities that I wanted, sent me off to a different department. And somebody there said, whoa, man, she's great. Yeah, she took minutes for my meeting and she was awesome. Hey, you should ask if she can take minutes for your meeting. And because this person didn't like me and didn't want me, she was more than happy to send me off to any meeting that somebody else needed to have their minutes taken. And that, my friends, was my ticket to my dream job. From that point, having the exposure from all of those different department heads doing minutes for their meetings, serving them well, I was positioned when an opening happened that one of those managers, those top managers, called me and said, Shannon, there's this position opening up. You want to come over here and give it a try? Yeah. And guess what? The old job that I'd been doing, they never let anybody go anywhere. They never let anybody go anywhere. They hoarded all their good people. They said, oh, if you're a good worker, we want you to stay here. But for some reason, somebody didn't like me, treated me unfairly, and they let me go. I spent the next 15, a little more, a little less, 15 or so years doing a job that I could not have loved more. I was made to do that job. I got to be in public relations. I got to go on TV and talk about important things. I got to interview people. I got to work with employees who had been heroes. I'm telling you, that person not liking me actually turned out to be the biggest gift I ever got. So I want to encourage you. If somebody's trying to hold you down, don't worry about it, because these two principles, these two mindsets really that I'm going to share with you are your key to not having to grieve over it, not having to worry about it, not having to stress. Are you ready? I hope you've got a pen. They're simple, but they are profoundly powerful. The first one is this: if you want to have an abundant life, remember this: God is your source. God is my source. God is my source. See, it turns out that because God is my source, the fact that one key person didn't like me could not stop abundance from coming to me, because that person wasn't really the source of my success. She wasn't the source of my opportunity. She was not the source of my supply. It is the same for you. When you begin to really understand that the boss that just fired you is not the source of your income, that boss that fired you is not the source of your opportunity, that company that downsized is not the source of your livelihood. When you start to realize that the friend that stabbed you in the back is not the source of your support, when we start to understand that our source lies outside of these fragile and mercurial connections that we've built, when we start to see that our true support comes from God, nobody can stop the flow of abundance to you or to me. It is crucial. It is crucial. When we understand that God is our source, we can forgive people who treated us bad, like that woman who treated me unfairly. I can forgive her, and I did forgive her. Why? Because she could not hold me back. She wasn't fair to me. It didn't matter. My source came from above. When we understand that God is our source, we can embrace the changes that come our way and trust that no matter how discouraging they may look from our perspective in the moment, and absolutely, we could kind of take a little sidetrack here and talk about beauty, right? Find the beauty. No matter how dark that situation may look, there is also beauty to be found there. And when we understand that beauty, the source of it is not an individual, but it comes from God, we unlock the opportunity for abundance to flow into our lives. God is my mindset number one. The company can fold. The boss might lack integrity. None of that matters because they are not my source. I had an opportunity one time to pretty much sit and say nothing while people made a plan to deceive their customers. I was in a temporary job at the time, so it was kind of one of these deals where they said, "Hey, Shan, you want to try this out? And if you're good at it, we'll let you have it forever." And it was a job I really liked, and I would have liked to have that job forever. And as I sat at the table, the powers that be, some of them, the ones who would be deciding if I could have that job, started talking about this plan to save money. And their strategy to save money involved not telling our customers that we weren't going to fulfill an obligation that we said we would keep. And the reasoning was this. Well, they said, we won't do it even though we told them they would. And if they ask for a refund, we'll give it to them. And we will still save money. Even if we let them all down and they all get refunds, it'll still be cheaper than if we fulfill our commitment. And myself, who is my source? Because there was some integrity at stake here. And I wanted to bring the honor. And I knew that if I pushed back against these people, they would see me potentially as not being a team player. They would see me potentially as not caring enough about the financial straits that our company was in. And yet, I could remind myself that those people were not my source. Understanding that those people were not my source gave me the moral conviction and the strength to stand up for what I knew was right. And fortunately, I did not lose my position. I was able to continue on serving for many years to come. It was wonderful. They eventually heard what I was saying, and others chimed in as well. So it wasn't just me. And they didn't follow through on that really misguided plan to save money. I was able to stand up for my beliefs, to stand up for integrity, because I understood that even if they set me down, sent me away, demoted me, they were not the source of my success. Understanding where your source is, who your source is, sets you up to be resilient in the face of unwanted change. It sets you up to bring the honor and be strong when your morals are tested, when your convictions are tested. When we understand that our source is God, we do not have to worry about where our next paycheck comes from, where our next meal comes from, because abundance is unlocked in our lives. That's mindset number one. Let's see what you guys have to say. So Mary says this is powerful, and it is, Mary. This is powerful. It is simple, but it is profoundly powerful. And through that hard time, Carol says, came the good job or the best job. Exactly right. We cannot see what's around the corner always, but we can trust that it will be good because we know the source is good. How does that change fear for you? If you were to acknowledge that, you know what, that person that I've been trying to make happy and it just doesn't seem I can do enough, she's never going to be happy. What changes when you start saying, all right, that person is a temporary thing in my life. I know God is the source of good things and good things will come my way. I don't have to worry about what other people think, what other people say. I can pursue my dream with confidence and faith because I know that my source for that dream is a good source. When we look not just for money, not just for money, not just for promotion, but for any good thing in our lives, if we want an abundance of good relationships, if we want an abundance of joy, an abundance of generosity, an abundance of finances, money, resources, an abundance of gifts, if we want those things, when we understand who the source is, when we understand who the source is, we are able to receive those things. We are able to receive them, and no person can stop my dream if the source of my dream is God. How does that change the way you pursue what's in your heart? The passion that you experience when you think about that goal you have, that dream you have, the gifts, the talents, the abilities that you have in you, that you love to use, that it just lights you up when you get to share them with the world. How does it change your approach to using that gift when you understand that it comes from God? He's the source. He is the source of every bit of abundance in your life. Nobody else. God. It's a big statement, but it's true. It's simple and it is profoundly powerful. Who is the source? Are you experiencing anxiety about your future? The source of good things is your solution. The source of all good things is your solution. And understanding the source will take away that fear. Powerful stuff. So that's mindset number one, understanding who is my source. That's the first piece of abundance. The second piece of abundance is, what do you do with it? If we truly want abundance to come into our lives, we have to be a river, not a reservoir. It comes in and we allow it to flow out. We cannot be greedy. We cannot just hog it and store it and hoard it. When abundance of any kind comes into our lives, we have to share it. And this second mindset is why. Here it is. First one, God is my source. The second one is, I am a steward. I am a steward. I've known people who were, quote unquote, born into money. Their parents were wealthy. Their parents' were wealthy. They could not relate to my style of living for anything because they came from a wealthy background. And regrettably, they also had an air of superiority. The fact that they had money caused them to think that they were better than I was, that they were smarter, that they were more deserving. When we're talking about abundance, we're not just talking about money. I've met people, and I'm sure you have too, that were smart. They were smarter than everybody else. And they made sure you knew it. Here's the thing. If we look at the abundant resources that we have, whether it's money, creativity, talent, gifting, whatever resource we have in abundance, if we look at it like it is ours and we own it because we earned it, we are at risk of stopping the flow of abundance in our life because we've become a reservoir. We're hoarding it. And we also run the risk of squandering it, using it foolishly, or using it to hurt people instead of help. How about using it for control? Did you ever know anybody who held money over your head? If you don't do what I want you to do, you're not going to get this allowance. If you don't do what I want you to do, you aren't going to get all this money when we die. It happens, you guys. That is real. And it is a misuse of resources because the person who acts that way does not understand. They don't own it. They're a steward. Those two mindsets go hand in hand. When I understand that God is my source, I also understand that since he's the source, it's not really mine, right? He's given it to me for a reason, and I need to use it according to good purposes because the person who put me in charge of using it is good. I will make decisions that are going to enhance people, allow them to grow, allow them to expand. I am going to do good things with the resources I have. I will not be inclined to say, I have these resources because I'm so smart, because I'm so special. If you were as good as I am, you'd have these resources. That's not how it works. When you want abundance in your life, understand that every good thing comes from God. He is your source and nobody can stop it. And determine that you will treat every good thing you get as a resource. You will be a steward. A steward is somebody who commits to take care of something with the best interests of the owner at heart. When you commit to using the abundance that comes into your life from the source, when you commit to using those resources the way the source would want you to use them to do good, to expand your gifts and your influence so that others can grow as well, so others can profit, so that others can grow in their gifts and their strengths. When you commit to being a steward of the abundance that comes into your life, you are going to make your decisions differently. When we don't know who is our source, we make decisions to please the person that we think is. And those decisions aren't always in alignment with what we know is best. It's always submitting ourselves to somebody else's plan for our resources. When we think somebody else is our source, we subvert our dreams, what our heart says, what our purpose is to their plans, and their plans are never going to be what's best for us. But when we see that the resources we get, the source of them is giving them to us so that we can use them to benefit others, to be kind, to be generous. Oh, now a beautiful river starts flowing, and that river can get wider and wider and wider the more responsible we are about stewarding the resources that come from the source. Hi, Philip. I'm glad you're here. And Missy, I'm glad you jumped in. Thank you for being here. So I ask you, are you stressing over a decision you have to make? Are you stressing about a job that you want and maybe can't get, or a job that you've got that somebody might be taking away? Wherever that interruption lies in that flow from the source to the people that you were created to serve, wherever that interruption is, I want you to just step back and ask yourself, who is my source? Where does my help come from? And then what good does he want me to do with the resources he allows me to steward? My source is God, and I am a steward. When we understand those two things, we set ourselves up for an abundant life and an increasingly abundant life. The more responsible we are with the gifts, the talents, the good ideas that we get from the source, the more responsible we are with taking action on those things, the more success we are going to see in our lives, the more that we stop dreading change, but start seeing change as an opportunity to prove I know where my source is coming from, and I will continue to steward the gifts I have to do the most they can do. When we keep that cycle going, we set ourselves up for abundance. You set yourself up for abundance. All right, let's see what you've got to say. Tell me, what does this make you think of in your life? Where do you need to shift your focus from a person to a source that's outside of their ability to influence or stop? All right, on Saturday morning, Carol says, in the leadership class, which we have every Saturday morning, well, 3 Saturday mornings out of the month, I've learned to live so much better, letting go of so much and getting better, setting healthy boundaries and gaining perspective of healthy goals and working to obtain them with the help of the other members. People helping you along the journey, right? Being encouraged. Love what you're teaching tonight. I'm glad you love it, Carol. It's dear to my heart, near and dear to my heart. Um, her favorite saying tonight, be a river, not a reservoir. Amen. Missy said, Sean and I were just having this conversation tonight, spot on as usual. It works like that, doesn't it? We start hearing those same messages from different sources that just remind us, yeah, you're on the right track. Yes, you're on the right track. This is what I think is so interesting. This is what I think is so interesting. When we acknowledge that God is our source and there is a disruption in our life, um, it may be a good thing, it may be a bad thing, but it's a change, it's a disruption. When a disruption comes in our life, so often we are looking for a replacement to whatever it is we think we lost. So, for example, I wanted a job. And I applied for that job and I thought for sure I was going to get it because I was, at least in my thinking, hands down the most qualified. I deserved that job, you guys. I should have got that job. And I didn't get that job. And I felt robbed. I did. I felt robbed. I don't always automatically embrace these principles. Sometimes it takes me a minute to kind of feel the feels and work through it and then come back around to what I know is true. The process, when I trust that God is my source and I act as a responsible steward of the resources I get, that process over and over in my life is going to yield abundance and success. So I'm looking at this opportunity, this job I didn't get. I am so crushed about it. And so I'm looking for God, my source, to give me a replacement job. That's what I was looking for because that's what I lost. But I'm here to remind you of something really important. Sometimes the source gives us something else instead. I lost a job opportunity. I was looking for another job opportunity. And what I got instead was an idea that I could start my own business, become a coach and a trainer to equip other people to lead themselves and others well. And that I could step away from the whole system of waiting for somebody to give me a job. Mind blown. What is your source giving you in the midst of the upheaval that you're experiencing? What is your source giving you that is going to provide the abundance that you are looking for? It may not be a one-for-one replacement. It might be a creative idea. It might be a dream that just sort of pops in out of nowhere. It might be 6 months of severance pay and 6 months of freedom to be able to start your next endeavor. I don't know what those things are for you, but understand your creator, your source will provide for you and ensure that you have an abundant life when you acknowledge that's your source and you act as a steward of what you get. And don't think for a minute that that idea you got that seems crazy isn't from your source. Your source is creative. Your source is amazing, so good, so powerful, so caring, so compassionate, so generous, so I there's a list. Throw some good ones in there. Your source is amazing. The things that you receive from your source in the midst of the change that you didn't want, treat those things with respect. Those new relationships that you have an opportunity to build, the new ideas that come your way, almost out of desperation. I don't know what else to do. I guess I'll do this. Hey, your source says, I've got your back. When you hear from your source, receive abundance, and then share that with others, even if you don't have it exactly right, I'm here to tell you it's going to work out because you are headed in the right direction. So Missy says we keep telling ourselves, it is his provision enough or not? Is his and it is. He's given you, he's given me everything we need right now to do the next thing we need to do. Missy says we think we know what would bring peace, what would bring his peace, but letting go of control and expectations and allowing him to flow is real peace. Trusting the source. I did not want to put my trust in that woman who was short-sighted and preferred someone else to me, and so she squelched my opportunities to learn and get the skills I needed to, that I thought I needed to be able to advance in that company. When I started realizing it doesn't matter if she likes me or not, my source owns the cattle on 1,000 hills. My source is always working on my behalf. And I am open to that. You can be open to that. You can be open to that. And we'll sum up by saying this. Missy says it, it's so true. These two mindsets are simple, but they are not always easy. And you get to choose. You get to choose. Do you want to look to these temporary situations as the source of your income, as the source of your peace, as the source of your power? Or do you want to start acknowledging my source is above all of that? I don't have to worry. I know I'm connected. My job is to be a steward of the good that's put in my life so that it can help others and I become a river, not a reservoir. With that, mwah, I love you. I want you to have abundance in your life. You can hashtag trust the process. When you understand who your source is, my source is God, and I am a steward of the abundance I get, you will have a life that not only expands in its abundance and in its influence, but you will have a life that also allows you to keep things in perspective, to not use the resources you have to control people or to unduly influence people or to throw your power around or to hold people down. How beautiful is that? All right, you guys. Mwah! Carol says she loves it, and I love it too. You guys, this is the way to live. This is the path to abundance, to simple things. You can do it. Choose it every day. And as always, I am here to help. I love you all. Bye.